صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. We're going to start the program with the recitation of Surah Yasin.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ياسين والقرآن الحكيم إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم تنزيل العزيز الرحيم لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباؤهم فهم غافلون لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فأغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون وسواء عليهم أأنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاءها المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم 2 فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون أتخذ من دونه آلهة إن يردن الرحمن بضر لا تغني عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعده من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون ألم يروا كم أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وأعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالعرجون القديم لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون وآية لهم أنا حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون وإن نشأ نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون وما تأتيهم من آية من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا أنطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يخصمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون ونفخ في الصور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون سلام قولا من رب رحيم وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم ألا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم ولقد أضل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون ولو نشاء لطمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون ولو نشاء لمسخناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون ومن نعمره ننكسه في الخلق أفلا يعقلون وما علمناه الشعر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون وذللناها لهم فمنها ركوبهم ومنها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون واتخذوا من دون الله آلهة لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند محضرون فلا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون أولم ير الإنسان أنا خلقناه من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل يحييها الذي أنشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون.
Please can we recite Surah Fatiha as it's the 40th after the death of Kanizbai Ramzanali Jaffer, mother of Mohamed RR Jaffer and wife of Marhum RR Jaffer. She was also the eldest daughter of Abdalrasool M.chatoo. Surah Fatiha. Just a couple of announcements before we start the main program. Next week we're very fortunate to have Dr. Ali Bajani, who will be speaking to us on Beyond Pluralism, Diversity in Usuli Thought. The day after, on Saturday, we have the Wiladat of the 15th Shaban program, and the week after we have Julian Bond. He's a recent convert to Islam, and he'll be speaking to us about his journey to Islam. Right now, we're very fortunate to have Mukhtar Karim, a long-standing member of our community, speaking to us on transforming charities to change lives. Let's welcome the Salaat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Mukhtar Karim is obviously a long-standing community member, the CEO of the Lady Fatemah Trust, and he is talking to us on this topic: transforming charities to change lives, the magic combination of donations, ground partners, and expertise to empower lives. Salat again. Ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum and good evening to all of you. As Mikdad introduced me, after 38 years of sitting in the chairs where you're sat at the moment, I couldn't dodge the bullet anymore. All the excuses had run out, including the one of being bedridden with flu 3 days this week. When Iqbal uncle calls me and I say, you know what, Iqbal uncle, I'm about to call Mikdad and say, I really haven't managed to clamber out of bed all this week. I don't want to be giving this talk on Friday. He said, Mukhi, I think he's in a similar position to you, and he would not appreciate you saying that. So, alhamdulillah, I start with gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this opportunity. And there are some key individuals that I'd like to thank right at the outset. The first one is my parents. To have grown up in a household where every trip that we had to the beach, to a local place in Kenya, Dad would always stop and say whether a village that we passed needed some water, or there was shortage of food, how we could transform those lives. And at the time, we couldn't understand it. We wanted to go to the beach. That's why we were in the car. Stopping by this village and seeing people thirsty and having to walk long distances to get that water. And he did it, those of you knew it, did it naturally. His business life, his life in this work, his life as a father to us, were all symbiotic. And then suddenly, after a short illness, he passes away. And then we say, now what? And I looked at my mom and I said, I think that's it, right? He did what he wanted to. And she said, Mukhtar, koshish kar. Let's give it a try. And I owe it to my mother. Whenever there was a period where it felt insurmountable, she'd say, Mukhtar vyadi na kar, thei jaise. Don't worry, we'll get over it. And alhamdulillah, thanks to her, this work carries on. But I would be remiss in not thanking our dear Iqbal uncle, who, whenever there was an issue in development economics and understanding how these things work, some of which I try and share this evening, and the best I've learned from him, he'd all say, Mukhi, I think we can do better here. And it was always those Mukhi, you can do better here conversations that, alhamdulillah, inspired me to do work a little harder, do a little better. And all I share are some humble thoughts this evening. This is work in progress. There's a lot more that can be done. And I hope by the end, some of us will be inspired to try and see what it is that we can do, because leaving it too late, quite literally, I felt I could have started earlier and I could have done more. And I still feel that even now I can be doing more, and there is more that can be done. So if there's one act of charity I ask from you all this evening, is just to put up with me for the next half an hour, 35 minutes. And by the end, it'll be interactive in terms of how we discuss the ideas that I've posited and see how we go forward. Unlike the traditional speakers, I'm not going to invite you to put your mobile phones away. In fact, I'm actually going to invite you to pull your phone out for the first part, because we've got a Slido joining instruction there. Just by a show of hands, how many of you have used Slido quizzes before? Yeah? For those of you who haven't, it's quite simple. You just open your camera, take a picture of that QR code, and it should, without asking you for any passwords or anything else, launch you into the question that I'm about to ask. So I see lots of fingers on the phones. The penalty for being last on there is you get to donate £500 to the Lady Fatemah Trust. You don't want to be there by force. The ad in the Muslim News isn't quite out yet, Tahir Auntie, for us to be able to do a Slido of that. Yeah? Any issues? Are we getting in? Yeah? So for those of you who have managed to get in, you'd be seeing some questions on there. And the question that I've asked is, what is the optimal use of charitable funds? Is it feeding the poor in society, empowering widowed mothers, bringing better access to water, to fresh water, caring for orphans, responding to natural disasters and wars, providing better health care, or giving free meals at religious occasions? And that's not an exhaustive list by any stretch of the imagination. And intentionally, these are humanitarian causes. The Salam Center remains a very important project. I continue to recommend you all to continue donating to it. So a bit more time, or are we ready to move? Interesting, and I think it allows you to give more than one response, right? Yeah, so 76% say feeding the poor and needy, 62% saying empowering widowed mothers, 64% bringing better access to fresh water, 56% of this packed hall, for those of you who are watching online, say providing better health care, 50% responding to natural disasters and wars, 45% caring for the orphans, and on this limited screen, I am struggling to see what it says for improving mental health well-being. And that's doing my mental health a lot of harm by not knowing what that score is. But you know, once the slide's closed, it'll give us a figure there. But given that it's the last one on there, it's less than 45%. Anyone want me to hold it a bit longer? It'll carry on being live there, but just for me to stop presenting it, because I will come back to it at the end, with your permission. Yeah, thank you. So I'd just like you to imagine a scenario here, and thank you to all of you who took part in that, to see how we're going forward. So this talk is in 3 parts. The most exciting part is the end, where you get to engage in this dialogue. But do feel free to stop me at any point and question, comment, however this goes. I'd love this to be dynamic, interactive. The first part is for us to look at the global scene. What are we talking about on a global scale where any humanitarian effort fits in? Is this in isolation where just a soup kitchen or digging a water well somewhere or putting a bed in a hospital somewhere or a desk in a school somewhere will help someone's life in the optimal kind of way? Or are there other factors going on? And if there are other factors, what are these other factors? And how can we be more mindful of what's happening and assess that? The second part is, so then what does that mean for the work of the Lady Fatemah Trust and the work that I can share with you? Where does a charity of the size of about 3.5 to 4 million pounds a year turnover fit into this global picture? Right? And the last bit then is over across to you. You've let me know your thoughts about what you think is the optimal use of charitable funds and how do we fit in there. Now, back to this picture. What do we see in it? Just shout out answers. You don't even need to put your hand up or put it in order. What are we seeing in this picture? A car accident. Yeah, what else? Rescuers. What else? Ambulance. Good. What else? It's nighttime. I don't see that. Anything visible in this picture? Yeah. They're using stretchers to carry people, right? All these are valid answers. Yeah. My thought process here is, imagine the driver of that car and his family leaving home. Right? Mom and dad, 3 kids. Yeah. Driving along the highway and they had an accident. Right? The immediate response that a lot of charities look at is how do we go in and help them, right? If there's no ambulance service, we provide an ambulance service. If there's no a warm blanket, if this is a cold day, to take the emergency procedures to stop any bleeding, to make sure that the vital signs are there, all that's happening. But imagine you are driving along the same stretch of motorway 20 years on, and the family who were involved in that accident still sat on the roadside in a tarpaulin tent, and everyone's saying, right, it's my turn to go and give them some food today. How would it feel? Say, come on, you had a car accident. Surely let's take you back home. Daddy might have died in that accident. There's a widowed mother. There's children. They need to go back to school. Mom may have completed formal education. She may not have. Maybe it's time to upskill her. She starts earning a living. Food comes back on the table. They downsize accommodation because of family circumstances. But to see them on the roadside and to see charities taking food back to them every day for 20 years, to me sounded absurd. It looked absurd. And yet it was the norm in so many countries. Now you exacerbate that to your Israeli airstrike or Yemen or wherever, and it's not just one car, it's a multiple pileup. And these multiple families are stuck in refugee camps, they're stuck in squalors, shanty towns, and everyone's just taking food to them every month and saying, here's your provision for this month, just get on with it. And that is where my penny dropped 6 years ago in starting the work of the Lady Fatemah Trust as I did, to say, hang on a minute, this current model's broken. I don't want to carry on just being the person that brings the food parcel. Yes, on day 1, perhaps on week 1, maybe month 1, but year 16, no thank you. And there are parallels. I was thinking last night as I was going through this, in our own family. My mother's brother's son, Niyaaz, 15th of Shaban, he's out in Madagascar working with his family, with his wife and 2 kids, and they're in the back of a car. He's got a driver, and he's going out to a beach resort for the night of the 15th of Shaban, and the car is going slowly, and he wants to get to the beach before Ramadan, before Maghrib even. So 15th of Shaban, and how he's going to get there for Ramadan, but Maghrib, he wanted to get there for Maghrib. And so the driver's driving a little slowly. He's saying, step out, I'm going to drive the car, and do that. And lo and behold, Niyaaz slams on the accelerator and the car tops over. He dies. So Riaz was 35 at the time. We lost Riaz on the 15th of Shaban. And wife, 2 young kids. They moved back to Dar es Salaam. Kids went to school. Babi moved back in with her mother's family. Things grew on. And I look at them now, almost 20 years from that day. And life is okay because an intervention was made. But for thousands and tens of thousands and millions of families around the world, they'll be stuck, whether it's a war, a natural calamity, a catastrophe, a health freak, medical misdiagnosis, whatever it is, to be stuck in that situation for the rest of your life is where my thoughts were to move on. So now, come with me to the global stage, right? So a bit of background on global thought. How many of you have come across the Sustainable Development Goals? Sorry, this is not me. Yeah, you have 2 of you. Any on our sisters and mothers side? Yeah? So the Sustainable Development Goals were adopted by the United Nations in 2015, replacing the more contained Millennium Development Goals, right? Why is it important to be talking about this? It's important to be talking about this to set a global framework of what is going on. In the 8 billion fellow human beings on Earth, what is happening that we as charities want to go in and rescue? Something's not quite right. What is not right, and what would right look like? And is it a global good that we're looking at, or is it subjective to where this good is supposed to happen, and in what facet of the life is it there? So the SDGs were a universal call to end poverty, protect the planet, and ensure that by 2030, all people enjoy peace and prosperity. Hooray. Who's booking the party for the 31st of December 2030 when all this is achieved, eh? And what it sought to do is to galvanize a global effort to enable all those left behind to achieve their full potential. Well, clearly, some are ahead. Yeah, if you're on the entitled top 1%, the rest of the 99% have some catching up to do. At least everyone should be, no one should be left behind in achieving their full potential. Wherever you are, whether you're flying your own private jet or not, you are in a position in your village to be achieving your full potential. So there are 17 goals. Examples here, number 1, no poverty, number 2, 0 hunger, number 3, good health and well-being. But if you fast forward with me to number 17, partnerships for achieving the goal. And I think that's really important. All of these are very important. And you may want to take some time to look at them now, or when you get home, just Google SDGs by UN SDGs, and this comes up, right? But remember, it goes beyond the putting food on people's tables to say it's important that we work together to be able to do that. 169 targets within this 17 goals, right? Things like immunization, things about literacy. And why is that important? I'll give you 2 examples here. The first one is literacy, right? Eradicating illiteracy. How challenging can that sound, right? In Zanzibar, the out-of-school rate was what US Aid, Canada Aid, Qatar Foundation were all looking to improve, right? So how do we get kids who are currently not going to school, off school age, into a school classroom? Typically, the school classroom was half the size of this cabin here, with 80 school kids in there, minimum, possibly over 100. There are entire school compounds without running water or toilet facilities. Those classrooms have no textbooks in them other than the one the teacher walks in with and walks out with. That is a student copy that he walks in and out with. If you have a teacher in the classroom, you're fortunate because he's got to cover 3 classrooms. So he spends very little time there. What's the outcome you get? The outcome you get is a 17% literacy rate, not of kids outside school, but of kids in school. Between 17 and 19% of primary school kids in school are literate. So it's important to drill down when you're saying eliminate illiteracy to see what are the objectives you want to see, the outputs you want to see in order to achieve that. The second example, so make sense so far? Yeah, you with me? The second one is water wells, right? Now, every humanitarian charity worth its salt say, we want to give water. Name of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. We're really, and I'll talk a little more about that later. We've got to do it for the thirst of Karbala. We want to give a water well. The number of phone calls I've taken to say, I've got £100, can you dig me a water well with a hand pump on there? I'm saying, how much does a tap in your bathroom cost? The his and hers one that you and your wife use, that porcelanosa, name dropping here for our facade tiles here, sold you, would you get a tap for your bathroom for less than £100? You're giving a village with 200 occupants who are going to ram this heavy every day because that's their only supply of water for £100? Sorry, I can't help you there, right? Because I don't want to just put something on there, walk away after taking the pictures and it collapses in the background, right? But the local community, even if you did that, imagine you've got a household without clean water in it. And you're enabling that household to have that clean water. Is that where you want to stop? Do you just want a household that didn't have water to now have a cup of water in it? Or do you want some wash facilities, better sanitation there? You want better irrigation for their farm? And you're going to do that out of £100? Good luck to you. I'll join your club if you manage to do that, right? So defining what it is we want to do and where we want to go from and take things to, I think is really important. Then the measurable indicators. So an example of no poverty is the objectives of the global SDGs are to eradicate extreme poverty. No one on the planet should be living on less than $1.25 a day, and reduce by half, compared to the beginning of the decade, halve the number of people living in poverty. Now here, it's not an absolute number, but it's whatever the national definition is. So clearly, somewhere in Western Africa will be lower than somewhere in Switzerland or Qatar, right? So whatever poverty looks like, thank you, Mukhtar, whatever poverty looks like on the theme of water, you're doing it you're halving poverty, having eliminated extreme poverty, okay? How much will all this cost? Well, 2.3 trillion by 2030 was the estimate starting out. And that's 3% of the global economy. So even our objective of 0.7%, Iqbal uncle, would not be enough to give us the achievement of the sustainable development goals. One final slide on the global picture, and then I start talking about the actuals. And that is what's not going well, right? So just look at SDG number 1, no poverty, right? That's the objectives there. 15% of all the targets are on track. A very low proportion, meaning 85% of them are not. What's happening there? 48% show moderate or severe deviations from the trajectory. Yeah? Perhaps due to the pandemic, perhaps due to wars, perhaps due to global warming, migration, things are not quite happening in 48% of the objectives on a severe or moderate level. 37% experience no progress or regression below the 2015 baseline. Yeah? With 100%, so what are the examples here? 100% increase in the number of people needing to seek refuge outside their own country. Number of global refugees has increased 100%. A decline in international finance to support clean energy research and production during COVID. So developing countries being told, hit your carbon neutral targets, are now getting less than half the funding to achieve them. 24 billion now down to less than 10 billion. A stagnation in the number of women aged 15 to 24 not being in education, training, or employment. So things again stagnating there. And there's various factors why that happens. So what does that mean for a charity like ours? I'd like to talk about the Lady Fatemah Trust. There's various other charities represented in the audience. You can posit your own worldview on there. What does it mean for us? to be plugging into the SDGs. The first thing is understanding the theory of change. And Yusuf Ali, no, that doesn't mean changing my deck of slides before I'm about to present. It means having a baseline of what we are about to intervene in. We're just not going to go in and drive a truckload of emergency supplies or go and dig a water well or put a bed in a hospital or a desk in a classroom without understanding what's the baseline here, what's going on. How many kids are outside school? How many kids in school are literate? What's the teacher's qualification like? Is this classroom that they're sat in about to collapse on their heads? I mean, let's get a general feel about what it is that they're doing. And if they manage the whole primary school and secondary school journey, beyond that, what are their life chances? Is school a prison where if a child in Zanzibar manages the 8 years of primary education, gets a leaver's certificate at the end, or a hoodie, if they're lucky, a t-shirt perhaps, what has he achieved? He's come to school thirsty, barefoot, sat on the floor, not seen a teacher other than one every 3 days, not learned literacy or numeracy to the level that he should be at. And guess what? If he had not come to school, he had learned farming, his dad would have taken him fishing, mum would have taken him seaweed farming or quarrying for coral. All those life skills he's lost out on. Suddenly he's sat there. Yeah, I can't read or write. I can't count. And I don't even know all these life skills that everyone around me survives with. So what have we done for this child? And then applying holistic transformation to society. So like the water example, what's he going to do with that glass of water, right? Applying the maternal health care. Another thing I'm going to talk to you about is if we have strong maternal health care, is it only intervening at the point where the proverbial hits the fan and you're trying to save the mother's life? Or can you intervene earlier and avoid examples of anemia by feeding young children well? And when they grow up to the age of being mothers, naturally, their bodies are better able to cope with what is required there. What are the challenges? The mindset, the culture. So mothernomics, something I'm going to talk to you about. You know, there's a big time when I looked at this and I said, hey, there's such a wonderful thing we're presenting you. You know, almost like that developed world flying into the developing world saying, hey, look, I brought you a present. And everyone looking at it saying, not so sure. I'm thinking, why? This is going to transform your lives. And they're saying, do you realize the in-laws who have just lost their son and have their daughter-in-law in the house, that if I let her go out, she might meet a man and get remarried? And I'm saying, is that the end of the world for you? I said, yeah, it is. I lose contact with my grandchildren. My last memories of my son are my children. And that's why I'm not letting mommy leave the house. Because if she goes and meets someone on the streets and falls in love and gets remarried, a new family starts, they might move town, and access to those kids goes. So there's me trying to say, hey, let's empower mommy so mommy can put food on the table and she can go out there and meet people who want to buy these clothes. Some of them might be men, and she has life choices. She can go in the market and buy better food for her children, shoes to put on the kids' feet, better clothes for Eid on their backs. And I've got a lovely story to tell there if you remind me at the end on Eid clothes. But all of this, to me, was a great thing. To the parents-in-law, they were saying, oh my God, no. What happens if they leave the house and I never see my grandkids again? And then the critical role for monitoring and evaluation, and this is key. Because charities are falling over each other to say, you have a Yemen program? I want a Yemen program too. So what are you going to do in Yemen? There's hundreds and thousands of trucks going around there moving emergency food. We know it. Alhamdulillah, the Lady Fatemah Trust has had enough to give 250,000 families emergency food parcels. So why do you want to set up a new operation? If enough of this is happening out there, just power to those who are doing it. Why do you always have to fall over and say, no, 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 my brand must have that presence too? What is your outcome analysis to say, what does good look like? Not allowing someone else to do it and wanting to do it yourself, or doing it in a more strategic manner, that would be better. Having more nutritional value in those food parcels, targeting those food parcels to get people into jobs when they don't have salaries. So schools and hospitals in Yemen, for example, had not paid salaries for 3 years. So why not use a food parcel to incentivize a teacher to come back into the classroom, teach, and get a food parcel instead of a salary? That would be something that's improving. But just because you're doing a Yemen program, I need to do a Yemen program too. Or you've got something going in Syria, I've got to do a Syria program too. Well, let's look at what our monitoring and evaluation outcomes would be any different if we all went our different ways. Don't get me wrong. The scale of the problem is huge. Everyone joining in will still require more to be done. But just doing it for the sake of, I don't want my donors to go across to your charity, I've got to do it too, maybe we want to rethink that. Okay, so a little bit about the Lady Fatemah Trust. On the turn of the decade, we had 5 key areas of the work. The clue is in our name, a mother. So we looked at the mother as the pinnacle of a community and using the mother as and analyzing her needs. The first area we looked at was access to water. If mommy is spending 2 hours a day going to a source of water that's contaminated and walking back with a bucket full of water, then that's 2 hours of her day gone. She could fall sick with diarrhea and dysentery, cholera. Kids will be out of school. We could save that by giving a clean source of water closer to where they live. Maternal and early years healthcare. So that's a big one for us to say that if we give children and mothers bearing those children a good start to life, then the rest of their life journeys can be excellent, and that's what we want. The third one is access to education, particularly for the differently abled, hearing disability, visual disability, mobility. Gaza at the moment, we've been supporting a deaf school there for 14 years in Gaza City, and 8th of October, all the operations shut down, and we don't even know where all the families are. So that educational intervention, unfortunately, is up in limbo at the moment, but there's similar ones in Pakistan and other areas where we work, supporting those access to education. This child, Mujtaba, is from Dasht-e-Barchi in Kabul. He's determined to work, study hard, and make the best use of his chance so that he can one day hold his mother and siblings' hand himself. That's his aspiration as an orphan child. Mothernomics. My children always challenge me to say, Daddy, you can't meet a new person and not say the word mothernomics. And if anything, I just say, to a new person I meet, to say, Assalamu alaikum and Islam. Before we leave, can you just remind me to tell you about mothernomics? Just so that we get that one out the air and the children can say, yeah, again, Daddy. But we'll see what mothernomics is about in a little more detail later. And if you haven't heard about it, don't worry, it's a made-up word, but one that's gaining a lot of traction in the work of the Lady Fatemah Trust. Mental health well-being. We realize that with people going through trauma, can you imagine the day after the ceasefire, going along to a Gazan and saying, hey, your kids need to go back to school and you need a mothernomics program, and hey, I'm going to give you a source of water supply. Life's going to be fine, isn't it? Do you realize what I've just been through? And what these families are going through? And any mental health well-being healing for them at all? Any recognition that their mental or emotional health has really been battered for the last few months, weeks and months? Some of them feeling it'll never be regained, some of them having nightmares, some of them wishing that their lives had ended sooner so they don't have to go through what they are. Mukhtar, how am I doing for time? Yeah? Okay. So, the first key project I want to talk to you about, and how, having looked at what we want to change, how we've gone about changing it. The holy city of Karbala, yeah? Imam Hussein's Kushali, Hazrat Abbas's Kushali, Imam Zainul Abidin's Kushali this week, Imam Sahib Zaman's Kushali next week. Take ourselves to the holy city of Karbala. What was the problem or the issue that we're looking at there? So particularly over the large, well-attended nights of Thursday night, but what I call the AAA, the Arafah, Ashura, Arba'in. The AAA days and the weeks leading up to them, the city of Karbala swells up from a city of 500,000 to 2 million people, depending on which city border you look at, to multiples of that, right? and it doesn't have a good source of drinking water to support that. Najaf similarly. All quarters of Najaf, all these people turning up for Laylatul Qadr in Ramadan, 19th, 21st night, for the 13th of Rajab, even on the, let me get this date right, 28th of Safar, the Wafat of Rasulullah, millions come and pay their condolences to Rasulullah on that day. So what happens instead? We end up with water not being drinking water not being available on tap. So you can't put a glass under there, Miqdad, and just serve it to me. You've got to go and get a plastic container. Little plastic thing with an aluminium foil on there, and you've got to peel that, like you get on the airplanes. So that is the way you drink water. Now, midsummer, that water was bottled at some point. It sat in the sunshine. It's had carcinogenic substances perhaps introduced to it. Each box, 10 to 12 kilos, put in large cartons, carted around. And then every 500,000 cartons generates 20 tons of single-use plastic. What was the traditional model? Take yourselves back to that roadside crash where you just take food onto the roadside. The traditional charity model for all the charities working in Arbain there was, let's cart some more boxes for the Zawar. Zawar of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, they're thirsty. Come on, we've got to serve them. I looked at it and said, no, come on guys, there's got to be a better way. We're in 2023. Why can't we not have clean drinking water? If you looked at Google Earth on Najaf, there's a large lake called Bahr al-Najaf just behind the holy shrine of Imam Ali. If you look at Karbala, the whole narrative is around access to the Furat. See, if we've got these natural sources of water, why are we carting these things after keeping them in carcinogenic introducing circumstances for weeks and months, and then lugging these boxes around and saying, Labbaik Ya Hussain, by doing that? It's got to be a better way, surely, right? So what is it? You said the visitor volumes for the 3 days. Who do we work with? If the Lady Fatemah Trust is going to go in there and purify what it takes for millions of people to drink water, who do I give this water to? Where do I take it from? I know the machine. I can cost the machine. I can build it. I can bring it to Iraq. But then who takes it from me? Gets its water from the Furat. It's got to get into the shrine of Imam Ali in Najaf. It's got to get into the shrine of Imam Hussain and Hazrat Abbas in Karbala. Where am I going to get that certificate? How am I going to dig the road from the Furat up to the shrines? And alhamdulillah, the outcome of this is that every Zaire of Imam Hussain alayhi salam and Hazrat Abbas up to Maqaim Saibu Zaman, so the whole of the old city of Karbala, including the Khaymaga, the place where the tents were of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, gets water from the installation that the Lady Fatemah Trust introduced. So it is possible. We did it. The partners there were the governorate of Karbala to allow the roads to be dug up. The central government in Baghdad to allow enough water off the Euphrates to be diverted to Karbala for the peak seasons, for it to be drawn and purified. And the volumes we're looking at here are 2.5 million liters a day. 4 Olympic-sized swimming pools each day at peak of drinking water. 10 million of these. So 10 million cups of water a day. Right? So how many plastic boxes would you have lugged? How much single-use plastic would you have generated? How many carcinogenic substances would you have introduced? And then the landfill that goes on after that to just burn these plastic, releasing more toxic substances into the ecosystem to do it. Now, not needed at all. I'm not going to lie to you that no single-use plastic is used in the process, because people still turn up with single-use plastic cups and draw it. But at least it doesn't get stored in that. At least it doesn't have to be lugged around in a plastic cup. And if you choose to move from your single-use plastic cup to a permanent cup or a bucket or even a little lorry and fill the back of it, no one's going to stop you. The supply is there. We'll encourage you to use more of it as long as it's going to the right purposes. Even the government facilities are using that water. Alhamdulillah. The technology and enablement is a subject for another day, if you allow me to do. And the outcomes we've already discussed. So what does this show us for a global issue? If we can do it for tens of millions of Zuwar in Najaf and Karbala all year round, why can we not do it for everyone else? Why can it not be possible for the 800 million mothers and their daughters who go and fetch water with dirty water with buckets every day, in the same inspiration of the thirst of Karbala, in the name of Imam Hussein, in the name of Lady Zainab, in the name of Abul Fadl Abbas, why can we not stop anyone in the world not having access to clean water when they want it in this day and age? So I did promise to talk to you about Mothernomics. I don't want to run out of time and be begging for more time. I might take 10 if that's okay. Yeah, that's a little thing on Mothernomics. Bear with me.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحیم. نامم از خدیجه، تخلصم از وکیلی. من یکی از خانمای بی سرپرست هستم که در خیاطی با حمایت الفتی هست. یک زمینه کار بر ما پیدا شد، یک زمینه یادگیری بر ما پیدا شد که ما بتانیم سر پای خودمان استاد. خیاطی رو یاد نداشتیم دیگه، یعنی کل کم خیاطی رو یاد گرفتیم، میتونیم یگان جای کار کنیم، یگان جای سر پای خودمان استاد. هم در بخش برشکاری یاد گرفتیم، هم بخش کار با چرخ یاد گرفتیم، همانوش. انگیزه جدید پیدا کردیم، کار زیادتر یاد گرفتیم، میتونیم در بازار کار کنیم، یعنی امیدواری بر خود ما پیدا شد. قبل از این خود یاد نداشتیم، هر جای میرفتیم میگفتن نمیتونی، یاد نداری، نمیگیریم. یعنی اگر هر کارگاهی بریم حداقلش چرخ کاریم خوب شده دیگه، در بخش بریش هم خوب است. بسیار چیزهای خوب در اختیار ما گذاشته، از قبیل چرخ خیاطی، ماشین زیگزال، پیکو، تیکه، از همه امکانات که بر ما دادن ما استفاده خوبی کردیم. اقتصادی که کمک خرج خانواده شدیم، یک کم بیش کمک کردن، از اون لحاظ خوب شده. اجتماعی که داخل اجتماع هستیم، همراه مردم کار میکنیم، جرأت ما زیاد شده. انگیزه داده دیگه، کار میاریم از خانه بر خود ما میدوزیم، در خانه خودم ما دیگه بیرون خیاطی نمیدیم، خودم میدوزم، با همراه دوستا کمک میکنم، با از همین محیط یاد گرفتیم، از جای دیگه یاد نداشت. خوشحال هستیم که ما این خانمای به سرپرست حمایت کردن، سرپای خود ما ایستاده میشیم، بر ما انگیزه دادن، امیدواریمو به زندگی بیشتر شده. شب میریم میگه چیکار کردیم، میگه من خیاطی بودیم، یا فلانی رو دوختیم، یا فلانی، یا کاپشن دوختیم، یا لباس دوختیم، یا پتلون دوختیم، همش. در بخشی که بعضی موقع که بچه‌ها کالا می‌خواستن نمیتونستم برش بخرم، بر از اونا خواستم مصرف کردیم. بعضی موقع بعضی چیزا بوده که نتونسته بودم در خانه براشون فراهم کنم از طریق پیسه زمین.
So I'll share the link with you to be able to watch it. There's only about another 60 to 90 seconds there. The scale of the issue with conflict is with soldiers, daily warfare. The number of men killed are disproportionate, usually. Gaza at the moment may be, an outlier, but usually during conflict, lots more widowed mothers have to look after children. And all of them are then dependent on handouts. Mothernomics is a program that tries to reverse that and says, you're not dependent on handouts. Let's teach you a skill. You come together like the mother in Kabul. There's a Mothernomics project in Karbala as well. They come together on preset designs, get trained, produce things in large scale. So in Karbala, the minimum order that they're now getting is about 300, up to 2,000 pieces for graduation robes, for school uniforms, wedding gowns, evening dresses, workwear. They're turning around $300,000 a year as a collective in Karbala. So it transforms a mother who's going and standing in a queue every week and saying, please give me some money, to a proclaimed entrepreneur, like that lady you saw in there, Khadija, says, I turn up to work, I put clothes on the back of my children as they go to school. They sold 1,500 winter jackets this year in 4 different cities in Afghanistan, and we're able to do all that. The literacy and the culture is something that is a challenge to overcome. Being an example to the children. A mother that has to seek and beg help is one role model for her children after their father has died. but someone who's taken control of their life and run one of the mothers, Sahar, in Karbala says, I'm now the mother and father to my children. I showed them the example that if their father was around, this is what he would have done. And it allows their aspirations to completely change. What are we doing there next? Well, scaling it to new functions. Miqdad, with your permission, I'm going to show of hands and say, one more project, or are we done and you want to engage here? Tell me, please move on to questions. I've heard enough of you. I've heard enough of your voice. One more project. That project is mothers and saving mothers' lives, yeah? Mothers' lives. And I think that will be quite topical for tonight. So what are we looking at here? Mohamed, remind me, where was Mum born? Yeah. Dar es Salaam. Not a million. That's the answer I wanted. Correct answer. So the Lady Fatemah Trust's Million Mothers program is based in Zanzibar. What did we look at in Zanzibar? We looked at one mother dying in childbirth almost every day. And every day, mother is going to give birth to child and the mother doesn't return. Typically, this is a later pregnancy, not the first one. She's just about well enough to give birth to the first one, feels a little weaker for the second one, third one, fourth one, tips her over the edge and she's gone, leaving 3 orphan children ahead. Forgive me, the males in the room, daddy goes off and remarries, leaves the first house's children to the grandparents, and that mother's, and those grandparents are gone in their mid-50s to early 60s, so the children are on the street by the time they're teenagers, right? So all the emphasis was there, build a shelter for street children, build orphanages, and I said, no, I want to save the mother's life. I mean, this is just as intuitive to me to say that if there is something that can be done for that mother who passed away and every other mother who's giving birth there, then we've done something that's noble and worthwhile, and we credit the thawab to your mother of that too. We were applying costly research. Professor Ari Kumarasamy of the emotive program at the University of Birmingham typically would get a grant of between 12 and 18 million dollars from the Gates Foundation to develop a postpartum hemorrhage solution or investigating miscarriages. He comes to me and says, Mukhtar, this is ready. Go and deploy this. $5,000, $10,000, and we're there, right, to deploy it. Taking on a countrywide program. We said every mother giving birth in Zanzibar. I don't care where she lives. I don't care what faith she has or none. I don't care what age she is. I don't care whether she's the third wife or the fifth or the fifth child or the first child that she's giving birth to. This mother deserves to have the best chance in life so the baby has the best start in life in looking after him in his early years. So the whole country is what we sought to cover there with the MOU with the Ministry of Health. Who are the partners? Ministry of Health, a local delivery partner, and then research by the Gates Foundation through the emotive program in Birmingham and similar interventions there. And then scaling elsewhere. If we crack the problem of maternal mortality and early childhood deaths in Zanzibar, why can't we do it in the rest of East Africa? Why can't we do it in Sub-Saharan Africa? Why can't we do it in South America? I mean, this is a case in point where we say, right, inshallah, in 3 years' time, no mother will unnecessarily suffer in childbirth. No child will unnecessarily, go through hospitalization because, early intervention could have assisted. Now it's worked. Where else can we take this? And with this video clip, we will quite literally call it a day. Those of you familiar with it, this is the village of Makunduchi in South Zanzibar.
For whatever they did for us, it's very great and very helpful for us. And actually it is improving our service in Makunduchi District Hospital. And we thank for the equipment because actually currently we have a lot of mama who come to deliver here. The number is highly increased due to the service we give. Because all of them are satisfied, I can say that. So when they compare before them, we could deliver of about 60 to 70 per month. Where currently we come up to figure 115. per month. It's very high. And we thank God and we thank them very much. And whatever they can help us, so we really appreciate it.
Nashukuru sana, huyu ni mtoto wangu wa tatu kuja kujifungulia hapa kutokana na kupata huduma nzuri na kushughulikiwa vizuri sana. Kwa hiyo nashukuru Mungu kwa hospitali hii sihaba, alhamdulillah, inatuendeleza vizuri.
Mwashao Ali Juma is from Muongoni and has delivered her daughter in Makunduchi because she knew that she would receive good services. Since Lady Fatemah Trust has started supporting the maternity services, the patient satisfaction has improved because of the training of staff, improved equipment, and medicine available through their support. Thanks for impacting the lives of these mamas and their babies in a positive way.
Huyu ni mtoto wangu wa mara pili kujazalia hospitali. Nipenda kujazalia hapa kwa sababu niona mtoto wangu wa mwanzo nilipokujazalia hapa niona nini zake, yani huduma zao nzuri sana, ndio maana nikaja kwenda nijazalie hapa.
Abiza Hamisi Sadiq is from Kizimkazi in the south. She has just delivered her little boy at Makunduchi Hospital. She was very impressed with the services. She attended her antenatal clinic in Kizimkazi and was identified and advised to deliver at Makunduchi and has done so safely for herself and her baby. Thanks to Lady Fatemah Trust for the support offered at the outlying clinics that identify high-risk patients.
Nimekuja hapa kujifungua mtoto wangu huyu wa pili. Kujifungua hospitali hii hapa. Kwa huduma zao nzuri, wanajua kupenda, kunyenyekea, na anajua na una tatizo, anakuhudumia vizuri. Ndio tukaja tukaamua kujifungulia hapa. Tunashukuru kwa huduma za hapa. Hatuweki ni nyuma. Anatushughulikia. Pia tunashukuru manota kwa msaada wao.
Merchant Suleiman Hassan is from Kajengwa and she has come to deliver her second child. All of the factors that go into providing safe births and reducing maternal mortality have been made stronger by Lady Fatemah Trust. Thank you, Lady Fatemah Trust.
Tunatoa huduma za wazazi ambao wanakuja kujifungua. Huduma zetu tunajitahidi kuwa karibu nao wazazi wetu, tunawashajihisha na tunawasomesha pia kuhusu dalili za hatari baada ya kujifungua na kuhusu lishe, pia tunawahamasisha. Vile vile tumekuwa tukipokea misaada mingi kutoka kwa wafadhili wetu, inatusaidia na bado tunatarajia watazidi kutuwezesha, tupo pamoja nao. Asante Lady Fatemah Trust.
So I'm going to skip over the slides remaining. Mikdad, that's not a request to be called back, but just to say that, you know, I promised we'd end with this. Going back to the millennium, so the Sustainable Development Goals, no one left behind. Did you notice in the Swahili when she said, hatujawekwa nyuma? That is what adopting a framework like the SDGs, saying no one left behind, even in an uneducated mother's terminology in the village of Makunduchi in Zanzibar, says, thank you, I don't feel left behind. Thank you so much. You've been an amazing audience. This is now your time to throw the rotten tomatoes and eggs and get me back for what you've had to endure over the last period. But before you do, I would invite you to think, what would you like to see the Lady Fatemah Trust do next? And most importantly, what is your role in helping us achieve that? I just happen to be the lucky person that has the conversations with the donors and the hardworking people on the ground. I'm just a truly amazed individual that Allah has given me both sides of the story to tell, but that's all I am, the storyteller. Allah is the enabler, hardworking people on the ground deliver this, donors facilitate it happening. Everyone has a role to play, whether it is the extra pound in your pocket or the £1 million legacy that someone might have just left. It could all be deployed in the area that you feel. There's 20 countries we work in. There are 5 key areas of work in addition to emergency response. it's all possible. There could be some corporate social responsibility grants, some funding that's out there in some grants with countries or corporates that is enablement. Don't feel that you've got to go off and do this yourself. This is your charity. Let's do it together. But let's recognize the fact that we're all doing this for the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I open myself up to any questioning, comments, improvements that we can go through.
Okay, Zaid first, and then Lady Side, and then Mohamed Karim.
Thank you very much, Mukhtar. As you know, I'm a big fan of Lady Fatemah, but there is a section of society that I don't necessarily agree with that says actually by building a maternity hospital in Africa, you are almost aiding the corruption in these governments and basically doing the work of these governments for them, which then stops people rising up against their government and stops really them calling their governments to action.
Valid question.
How do you answer that criticism?
Sure. Should we take another question? I've got that.
Thank you very much, Karim. Thank you very much for your fantastic, the small organization that I call the £4 million budget, approximately. But can I ask you, I'm not happy with the certain classification in the worldly approach to different countries. I work for other refugee organizations. Why concentrate on the countries where they have a fantastic financial potential, like Iraq, Iran, Syria? The objective of Fatemah, this is my suggestion now, should be on natural disaster areas, earthquake, drought, or floods. Those are the actual refugees that need the most potential help. I don't know, sorry, can I ask you a quick question? How many staff do you have? Besides, I'm not investigating.
So UK-based or
UK-based?
Globally? UK-based, around 4 to 5 individuals who will oversee these things.
So how many of them have gone for training with the United Nations or some refugee areas where they would get better uphold in the education, how to deal with certain kinds of objectives?
Sure.
It would be interesting for you to do that.
Sure.
But the point is, going to war areas should not be your objectives. They all suffer. Everybody is suffering in a different form in the world. The objective should be the 3 areas that I mentioned.
Yeah.
These are the most necessary. As a matter of fact, you can have a gradation of which are the classification, which are the areas of most importance. And the classification of another thing was health of any area of disaster. The most important is health. And then comes logistics and then the food supply.
Sure.
And then comes the education other parts.
Sure. Thank you.
So that's just a suggestion to you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. One more and then I can answer Zaid and Mohammed.
Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.
Jazakallah khair for your very informative and interesting talk.
Thank you for your comments.
I was wondering, can I ask 2 questions or shall I save the next one later? Thank you for that. So with the aim of $1.25 that everyone should have as a minimum, economically, how would that work? Would we need less rich and excessively rich people, or do we need to raise the standard of the financial standard of everyone so we can all afford to buy more expensive fair trade items, for example? So that's one question. And the other one, could you remind me where you said in Iraq that you built the not the well, but the facility.
The Methonomics facility?
No, the
water
purification.
Karbala and Najaf, the shrine cities.
Was it part of the Euphrates that you were?
Yeah, so it's actually based with the Ataba Husseiniya.
Okay.
So they look after it.
Yeah.
And all the civil works and the housing of it is done by them.
Is by them.
Yeah.
Can I? Yeah, sorry.
Go on.
No, sorry.
So they're based in Karbala, the shrine city, and Najaf, both within the shrine holy house compounds.
Brilliant. It sounds amazing, and mashallah, the aims sound amazing, but Iraq has a water shortage, so I'm wondering, like, how would that work without kind of sorting out the issues of global warming and the dams upstream? Thank you.
with your permission, can I answer them in reverse order? So the easiest one to go with are, with the water shortage, the Euphrates, the direction in which it is permissible to divert that water is a central government issue. And so working with the central government, the Ataba Husseiniya can write into central government and say, this is the peak period, we need to purify more water, can you divert more? And it then means that your little plastic containers of waste are not an efficient way of using it. You need to be more effective in doing that. The first part of your question was? Yeah, the money on $1.50 a day. I mean, it is enabling people to be able to have access to more resources, improved farming methodology, having better access to markets, to be able to have that $1.25. I don't think much of that 2.7 trillion that's needed to get us to the Sustainable Development Goals is diverted directly to the $1.25 a day to give people. It's just those people who are really in that road crash, who are going to be assisted to stand up on their own feet. The whole thing here is choice and ability to make choices. I hope that answers both the elements of your question. When you have a water shortage, the best way of using that water is not to containerize it and lug it around the country, but to be finding the sources of the water with the Tigris in Turkey and its damming there, and having other water sources utilized in a more effective manner through desalination plants where they're required. Having the alternative of those containerizations is highly wasteful because it uses a lot of water in the process of bottling that. So that's how you get across there. The question Zaid asks is a very important one. Are we duplicating what the government does and giving them more grounds for corruption? Absolutely not. The infrastructure here for every one of the 142 clinics and 11 hospitals, district hospitals, including 2 referral hospitals, remain the government's. They pay the salaries. In fact, we increase the salary burdens for them by training up and upskilling staff. All that falls on their shoulders. All we're doing is putting in processes, giving them the training, and ensuring that they are more effective at doing what they do. And therefore, it's a 3-year intervention where we say at the end of it, quite literally, excuse the pun, but you're left holding the baby. We're getting out of here. We're not going to stay here. And that is the whole purpose for the talk this evening. We're not going to sit here and say to Ataba Husseiniya, every time your machine breaks down, we're going to come and fix it for you, or lay another pipe for you, or when this breaks down, buy another machine for you. Saying this is the transformational leap that you need to see. It's working now. The next one's on your pocket, right? These are the hospitals working in their maximum efficiency. So this is what good looks like. Good, I show you achievable that your undertrained staff or your ill-equipped hospital unit will produce these results. Now, as this is going up and your tax income is coming in, they're introducing a national insurance scheme there. So their hospitals are being built by themselves. They're being equipped and staffed at their own pocket. All we're doing is pulling those pieces together on a training program and ensuring, like the people there say, that intervention is a one-off, taking them from the low levels where they were to the higher levels and then remaining accountable to their electorate at the higher levels. Mohamed, your question about the conflict areas. Afghanistan, possibly post-conflict, Gaza in active conflict, Iraq post-conflict 17 years, East Africa, India, Pakistan, not in conflict zones. So we're not necessarily focusing on any specific area. Training all of our staff, UK-based and abroad, are signed up to Bond, who provide these, whether it's program management or understanding how financial literacy, logistics, deliveries work better. So all of these, they have access to the training in terms of what's happening. And the SDGs is the mantra throughout. So the UN's sustainable. I'm not saying there's nothing more for us to learn. We are still on the journey of learning, but we are taking on that advice and that whole global framework of where the journey is going. With the water plant, just to go back to the sister, with the water plant, the Atabas have an annual budget in the hundreds of millions of dollars from central government. Chandeliers, gold tiles, marble slabbing, all of that. But not enough clean water for the Zuar. Now it's been introduced, the accountability suddenly goes, oh my God, how were we failing in our most basic task of providing Zawar with clean water? Everyone suddenly sits up and says, okay, you had those resources. Little old Lady Fatemah Trust came along, worked its little magic, did this. Surely you can expand this to the rest of the whole of Karbala city, the route of the march, the city of Basra, every other place that's struggling. This is a proof of concept. Now, go and do it everywhere else. So instead of shifting responsibility, it's actually holding them to a higher standard of responsibility, saying it's not that because of the water shortages that this didn't happen, it's because you created water shortages by your inefficiencies. Mukhtar. Not sure.
Last question.
Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.
So, I mean, when the hospital maternity happened on the screen, I remember I've seen this somewhere before. And it was actually I've seen it on the website, on your website a few days ago. About the salination, purification water is done with solar power, right?
It can be. So the source of this is one thing.
So
when
I saw
you
the installation of solar panels for that thing. Yeah,
Sure.
I think that. Anyway, my main
I'll answer
question,
that.
my main question here is that you talked about working with other charities doing the same job. I found that very upsetting to see lots and lots of charities, because I've raised the money, I will do it. What is Lady Fatemah Trust doing?
Okay, sure. Thank you. So in terms of the source of power for desalination, going back to the theory of change, the more complex we make a solution to a problem, the longer it takes to happen. Guess why a lot of these projects don't get off the ground? Because everyone wants to either make some money out of it, put their badge on there, or it's so complicated it feels unknown. I want to eliminate plastic, I want to eliminate thirst, I want to eliminate a need for an electricity connection by putting solar. All of that daunts people. And they had an aversion to using solar in Iraq. They said because of the dust clouds, particularly in the south, they'll get covered and you'll get no efficiency in the solar. We disproved all of that. Najaf said, we want solar. Karbala said, no. We've just introduced a 1 megawatt power transformer. Don't bring solar anywhere near us because it makes us look stupid for just putting that. I'm not in a position to make judgments here. I want clean water. I want to eliminate those plastic containers that have the carcinogenic chemicals coming into them. You tell me when you're ready for solar, how you're going to go and put it on there, right? So by solar in Najaf, 100%, in Africa as well, solar, Nazimoja Hospital in Zanzibar. But the main issue is, even if it's grid electricity or battery power, wind, however you're getting the source of energy, clean water was the primary objective, and eliminating it. If you have a solution to charities feeling that they can work together without feeling their noses out of joint or disgruntled, I mean, it's a topic of a different lecture in itself, where the number of people that come to us and say, look, I'll give you $50. I'll get $50 from the donor. I'll give you 35 to do the work that the 35 will achieve, but you'll put my badge on there. And I'm saying, no. I've got to do $50 worth of work here, even if I've got to take 15 out of my own pocket and do it, and make sure that the poor person, we're not taking water, taking food out of their mouth. When you feel that this is all you can ever achieve, buy a food parcel and distribute it, Akil Bhai doing the same feels like a threat. If Mukhtar says, you know what, Akil Bhai is distributing food, maybe there's a need for medicines, or a need to put kids in school, or a need to do something else.
But it's about combining same effort in the same direction, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's not about you're going to get more thawab and he'll going to get...
Absolutely.
You're going to get the same.
Yeah.
Whatever way you do it.
Where you've got that mindset that I'm doing this to hand it over to someone who should be doing it, to carry on doing it, I don't feel deprived of the opportunity by someone doing it at the moment, or coming along to say, Akil Bhai, can I help you? These 20 trucks, can I pay for 10 of their drivers? And you label them whatever you want. I couldn't really care less. But do it. Just do it. Yeah.
You're not looking for recognition in this world. You're looking for your recognition from Allah, right?
Sure.
Thank you very much. If it's okay, we'll end there. Salaat ala Muhammad wa al Muhammad. And Mukhtar Uncle's around if you have any questions and would like to ask him directly.